What if I told you Charlie Munger's secret to real freedom isn't a stock tip, a clever tax trick, or a get-rich shortcut? It's a habit that looks, at first glance, disappointingly simple. Subtraction. Not deprivation, deliberate subtraction. Fewer obligations, more options, more time to choose. Freedom in this frame is not how much you make. It's how little you need to keep your life steady. Every recurring payment, every financed upgrade, every subscription that silently charges your card, those are not neutral. Each one is either a key that opens an option or a chain that limits it. Which are you building? Freedom is subtraction. Every recurring payment is a choice. Discipline compounds like interest. Optionality beats flash decisions. Listen, the world trains you to confuse consumption with safety. Advertisers promise comfort. Lenders promise access. Social media promises belonging. The result is a finely tuned treadmill that converts raises, bonuses, and windfalls into new obligations. You get a higher salary, and almost automatically, you get higher monthly bills. You're no richer. You're encumbered. Consider two archetypes to keep this concrete. Alex is a software engineer who just got a big promotion. His salary jumps by 40%. New apartment, newer car, subscription bundles, a smarter wardrobe. 6 months in, he's still anxious about bills. Why? Because each purchase came with monthly strings. A lease, a car payment, streaming bundles, phone insurance, a gym membership he doesn't use. The new income bought a slightly nicer treadmill. Maria is a nurse with a steady but modest income. She learned to live below her means early. She keeps her fixed costs low, tracks every recurring charge, and when she gets extra cash, she splits it, some to savings, some to pay down debt, some to a small reward. When burnout hits, Maria can take a leave, move to part-time, or retrain for a specialty. Optionality. She didn't need a huge salary to buy her freedom. She created it. Which story sounds more like the life you want? Most people pick Alex's life as a goal because it looks impressive. But aesthetics are not the only metric. The question is, how many months could you survive if your income stopped today? Most people can't give a confident answer. That uncertainty is the hidden cost of the consumption treadmill. This is the central idea that Charlie Munger's habit points to, though he wouldn't reduce it to a slogan. In his spirit, practical, blunt, and skeptical of glamour, the secret is that you can multiply your options by subtracting obligations. Minimalism here is strategic, subtraction that buys you margin, resilience, and the right to choose. Let's be clear about terms. Minimalism is not asceticism. It's not virtue signaling poverty. It's a tool. The point is to convert money from a chain into a key. Lower fixed costs mean you can survive a shock without panic. They mean you can say no to a toxic job. They mean you can wait for better opportunities, and you can accept risk with a safety net. Think about margin of safety like this. A boat with a higher freeboard rides waves without taking on water. Lower fixed costs raise your freeboard. You don't need to be wealthy to have it. You need discipline and the willingness to subtract. How the treadmill works? The mechanics. The treadmill begins with conditioning. You see an ad for a life that looks easier, then you acquire a payment plan. Auto renewals lock in services you barely use. Financing stretches purchases into monthly obligations that feel smaller, so you say yes. Your social circle upgrades, and you follow, so you won't feel left behind. Little by little, your monthly fixed costs expand. A raise arrives, you automate it into a higher lifestyle, and the same pattern repeats. After a few cycles, you have more liabilities than optionality. The numbers illustrate the trap more brutally than philosophy. Suppose your take-home pay increases by $1,000 a month. If you roll that into discretionary spending and add $1,000 in monthly obligations, you've increased your annual fixed costs by $12,000. To undo that, you must find the courage and discipline to cancel or renegotiate services, downsize, or cut other long-standing expenses. People rarely do. Worse, fixed obligations attract further obligations. You buy a nicer car, that suggests a different neighborhood, which leads to a mortgage or a new school district, which leads to elevated expectations and more monthly payments. The whole system is designed to convert increased income into permanent commitments. Advertising and behavioral design help this system. Companies optimize for frictionless buying, one-click checkout, subscription trials that turn into charges, promotions that make you feel the immediate loss of missing out. These systems are Pavlovian. They turn impulse into habit. And once reflex buys are monthly, they're harder to reverse. Optionality and margin. Why subtraction beats addition. Optionality is the practical reward. It's the freedom to say no, to pivot careers, to recover from health problems, to take a sabbatical, to start a company, to move closer to family. Optionality doesn't come from flashy ownership. It comes from not having everything tied up in obligations. Munger and his circle talk about margin of safety in investing. Translated to life, it means having excess capacity relative to what your circumstances demand. Lower fixed costs create that excess. Every dollar you free from recurring obligations is an investment in optionality. Discipline compounds, too. Saving $200 a month is boring. Let it compound for a decade, and you begin to see its power. It's comparable to the compounding of restraint. One small habit repeated beats sporadic heroic gestures. Discipline becomes a force multiplier. 3 simple rules to start today. You don't need a grand plan to begin reclaiming optionality. Here are 3 practical rules you can apply immediately. Small, repeatable actions that, done consistently, reorient your life. 1. Run a ruthless expense audit. List every recurring charge, every subscription, every insurance autopay, every membership that automatically debits your account. Add up the total monthly and annual cost. Ask, does this payment buy me optionality or chain me? 2. The 24-hour rule. When you feel the pull to buy something that isn't a necessity, wait 24 hours. For bigger purchases, wait a week. The delay breaks the impulse and lets you treat the decision like the investment it is. 3. Plan windfalls before they arrive. Decide in advance how you'll allocate unexpected money. A reliable illustrative split is 50% to invest, 30% to pay down high-interest debt, 20% for genuine pleasure. This framework prevents windfalls from becoming instant lifestyle inflation. These are not magic. They are pieces of a system that, when combined with restraint and time, create optionality. Think of them as habits that compound just like money does. A closer look at the expense audit. The audit is the practical heart of subtraction. It's a small, brutal, truth-telling exercise about where your money is leaking. Start with your bank and credit card statements. Pull the last 3 months and scan for regular charges. Make a list. Name of service, monthly amount, annualized cost, and whether you actually use it. Circle anything you can cancel within minutes. Then ask survival questions. If income dropped to zero today, how long could I pay essential bills? 1 month? 3? 12? The answer is rarely comfortable. Treat that number as a signal, not shame, but information. Most people will find surprisingly easy wins. A forgotten streaming bundle here, a lightly used gym membership there, a software subscription you no longer need. Small cuts add up. 10 forgotten subscriptions at $10 a month is $100. That's $200 a year turned from passive drain into available margin. Anecdote: the 150K paradox. I know an engineer. Call him Mark. He started out careful, then started getting raises frequently. Every increase bought something new. Better furniture, a high-end bike, a premium coffee subscription, a car lease. Within 3 years, his take-home rose significantly, but his anxiety did too. A layoff scare hit, and he realized he was spending as if the job was permanent. The higher salary had not bought peace, it had purchased more exposure. Mark did a brutal audit. He canceled 2 streaming services, sold the bike he never used, and refinanced a credit card balance into a smaller, manageable payment. He rearranged his monthly budget so that 16% of his take-home went automatically to a rainy-day fund. It wasn't dramatic, but the psychological effect was immediate. Choices returned. 3 months later, he negotiated a sabbatical to study a subject that had interested him for years. He had the optionality because he'd reduced his fixed claims. Discipline over impulse. The psychological work. There's a psychological side to this that matters as much as the arithmetic. Saying no is uncomfortable because social signals are powerful. We signal status with cars, with houses, with vacations. But that signal often masks a vulnerability, a dependence on external approval. Minimalism, properly practiced, is not withdrawal from life. It's reorienting the currency of your life away from other people's expectations and toward your own goals. This is where the 24-hour rule earns its keep. Most impulse purchases are an attempt to solve an emotional ache with an instant object. The delay brings clarity. After a day, the urge either dissipates or you still want the item. Then you can assess it as an investment. Will this materially improve my life for years, or is it a momentary taste? Windfalls. Plan before the gain. People dream of windfalls, bonuses, inheritances, lottery tickets. The common story is tragic. A big gain arrives, but without a plan. It dissolves into lifestyle upgrades. The disciplined move is to decide beforehand how you'll use unexpected money. A workable framework. Allocate windfalls into 3 buckets. 50% goes into investments that build future freedom. 30% reduces liabilities, especially high-interest debt that eats optionality. 20% is for enjoyment, real intentional pleasure that doesn't add new chains. The precise split can be tailored, but the point is the same. Have a plan so that surprise gains don't turn into permanent obligations. Treat purchases as investment decisions. Change the frame. When you consider buying something, ask, is this an investment in my life's optionality or a new obligation? Buy durability and value over trendiness. A cheap product that breaks and needs replacing often costs more in the long run, not only in money, but in time and hassle. Maintenance matters. Preserving what you have can be far more economical than constantly chasing the new. Maintenance is an underrated form of saving. Regularly maintaining a car, a home, your body, these are investments in resilience. Deferred maintenance compounds into catastrophe. You can save a surprising amount over time by prioritizing upkeep. The compounding of discipline. Here's a small arithmetic thought experiment that often snaps people out of their illusions. If you find $200 per month through cuts and invest it in a broadly diversified account, it grows. The point here is not to promise a number, that's not the promise, but to illustrate how small, consistent choices add up. The same is true of habits: saving, pausing before purchase, keeping maintenance current. The compound effect of restraint creates a resource that you can spend later on things that matter. Pressure points and tough choices. This method also requires moral clarity in how you trade off present consumption and future options. It demands small sacrifices that are often invisible to the world. You might skip a flashy vacation to build a fund that lets you leave a job later. You might buy a simpler car to free cash flow today and time tomorrow. These choices are not glamorous. They're boring. That boredom is the currency of optionality. There are social pressures. Your friends upgrade. Your feed shows lifestyles that look effortless. You will face friction. Prepare for that friction. Have a narrative you care about. Most people who find long-term freedom do so quietly, not to show off, but because they valued control more than appearance. The common counter-argument: but I worked hard. I deserve comfort. Fair. Nobody forbids enjoying benefits of your labor. The question is proportionality and timing. Enjoyment that doesn't tie you down is sustainable. Reward yourself deliberately and infrequently in ways that don't create new recurring obligations. The small rule here is this: before you add a new monthly payment, ask whether it increases your optionality or reduces it permanently. A practical audit walkthrough. Start here. If you're ready to act, start the audit with these steps. This is where many people stall, so I'll be explicit. Step 1. Pull 3 months of statements. Don't guess. Look. Step 2. Create a table. Name of charge, monthly amount, annual cost, how often you use it, cancellation complexity. Easy, moderate, hard. Step 3. Circle the easy wins. Charges you can cancel in minutes. Cancel them now. Step 4. For the remaining items, ask survival questions. If income stopped tomorrow, would this be essential? If not, move it to a reconsider list. Step 5. For items you keep, negotiate. Ask for lower rates. Downgrade plans. Most providers will give you a retention discount if you call. Step 6. Automate a portion of your savings. Even $50 a month redirected automatically is a commitment device that reduces the temptation to spend. Step 7. Revisit every quarter. Life changes, so should your audit. That's the start. It's practical, not moralizing. The point is to free dollars from autopilot and turn them into options. A test for brutal honesty. Try this quick test. Imagine your salary cut in half tomorrow. What lifestyle changes would you make? Be specific. Which subscriptions would you cancel first? Which debt would you attack? How much breathing space would you need to feel safe? Most people can't answer this fluently, and that unfamiliarity is telling. If you can answer clearly, you've already made progress. If you can't, the audit will give you clarity. Clarity reduces anxiety. Action produces optionality. A small, concrete example of compounding restraint. Picture a simple habit. You cancel one unused subscription worth $12 a month. That's $144 a year. You funnel it into an emergency fund. At the end of 5 years, you have $720 plus interest. It's not transformative alone, but imagine you cancel 5 such subscriptions. Now you're talking nearly $3,600 in 5 years, and the psychological habit of considering value before automating a payment. The arithmetic is mundane. The psychological shift is real. Why this is Charlie Munger's secret in Spirit Munger's approach, if you strip the anecdotes and aphorisms, emphasizes rationality, margin, and avoiding incentives that erode judgment. Applied to lifestyle that looks like subtraction. Reduce obligations, preserve margin, and you gain the freedom to make better long-term decisions. He and his peers always favored sound incentives and avoided leverage that tied their hands. Minimalism, strategically applied, follows the same logic. But there's a myth to dodge. Minimalism is not a moral pedestal. It's a pragmatic strategy. You do not need to live like a monk to gain optionality. You need to treat consumption as choiceful, not reflexive. Where most people stall, here's a blunt truth. Starting is easy, sustaining is hard. People cut subscriptions for a week, then drift back. Windfalls are the most dangerous moments. Excitement erodes advanced plans. Social pressure nudges us toward status purchases. To sustain change, you must turn small actions into habits. Automate savings. Use the 24-hour rule until it becomes reflex. Make audits routine, not crisis events. Frame every new purchase as an investment decision, not an emotion. A short rule of thumb. Before you add a new monthly payment, imagine it 5 years out. Will this payment still make sense if your income drops or your priorities shift? If the answer is no, don't add the payment. The next step, a practical test you can run this week. Before I go deeper into rules that reshape your relationship with money, there's a simple test you can run right now. This week, track every recurring charge and pause on non-essentials. Use that information to answer the survival question. When you find the low-hanging fruit, act immediately. If you want a simple tool to help, there's a one-page expense audit plus windfall plan checklist that lays out the steps and the windfall allocation framework in a single sheet. It's practical, not theoretical. If this message landed with you, it's worth grabbing and using as a working document for the week. Now, having set the diagnosis and a few immediate moves, it's time to examine the deeper mechanics, the micro rules that sustain optionality. We'll move from the broad architecture to the concrete playbook. How to treat big purchases as investments. How to manage debt so it doesn't erode freedom, and how to use maintenance as a defensive strategy. But before that, there's one psychological pivot most people miss, and it explains why minimalism feels both liberating and mildly painful at first, why subtraction feels like loss, and how to reframe it. Humans are loss-averse. Take something away and it feels worse than gaining the same thing feels good. Cutting back on recurring pleasures pulls this psychological lever. It can feel like punishment. That's why the art of subtraction is also political and branding. You must reframe subtraction as buying time, not losing comfort. This reframing is simple to practice. For each thing you cancel, write down the option it creates. 3 months of breathing room. the ability to decline a toxic project, the freedom to take a lower-paying job that fits your life. Make the gained option vivid. When the feeling of loss arises, recall the option. Over time, the new frame will override the reflexive shame of removing an item. The discipline of deferred consumption becomes pleasant because it buys you agency. Agency is worth more than most comfort goods because it lets you choose what really matters. A short anecdote about maintenance and surprise costs. I once spoke with a small business owner who confessed that the biggest drain on his finances wasn't flashy purchases. It was deferred maintenance. He hadn't serviced his HVAC for years. A sudden breakdown cost him thousands. After that, he adopted a simple habit, a maintenance calendar with fixed allocations. Regular small payments for upkeep replaced the risk of catastrophic replacement. He preserved capital and reduced stress. Think of maintenance as insurance you buy with time and modest money, not as an indulgence. Pulling the strands together. So far, we've diagnosed the problem. The expense treadmill converts income into obligations that reduce optionality. We've seen the remedy, strategic subtraction that raises margin of safety. We've practiced early actions, the audit, the 24-hour rule, and pre-planned windfall allocation. We've touched on psychology, loss aversion, social signaling, and the compound power of discipline. Next, we'll get into the playbook in more detail. How to treat major purchases like investments, how to prioritize paying down liabilities that erode options, the micro habits that keep your margin intact, and a simple, repeatable allocation plan you can use for windfalls and raises. We'll map out numbers you can use as illustrations, not promises, to help you decide what to do with extra cash. We'll also consider some counterexamples where spending is an investment in quality of life, and how to recognize those cases. But before we go further, one more question worth answering clearly. What does freedom look like when it arrives? For most people, it's quieter than they imagine. It's not a parade. It's a decision you can make without trembling. It's turning down a job that pays more but costs your health. It's taking 3 months to learn something new because you can afford to. It's choosing your children's school because it's right, not because your mortgage demands a zip code. Minimalism, in this disciplined sense, buys those quiet decisions. We're about to walk through exact tactics to protect and expand that quiet freedom. We'll examine how to deal with high-interest debt, the exact questions to ask before financing or leasing, a maintenance checklist that prevents catastrophic costs, and the allocation framework for raises and bonuses that stops lifestyle inflation before it starts. But first, let's step back and confront a tough objection. Isn't minimalism a kind of privilege? Some people can't easily reduce fixed costs because they have structural obligations, child care, medical needs, or lack of access to cheaper housing. That's true, and it matters. The logic of subtraction still applies, but the tactics change. When options are constrained, the focus shifts to reducing friction where you can. Small habit changes, negotiating care costs, community resources, and targeted debt reduction. The principle holds. Wherever you can free a dollar or a decision, you buy optionality. How you do it depends on your context. So, if your situation is tight, don't be discouraged. Start with what you control. A subscription here, a delayed purchase there, an automated $25 a month redirected into a buffer. Small things compound, and the alternative, waiting for a perfect moment, usually results in never starting. We're close to the practical heart of the system. In the next section, we'll run a few concrete scenarios. A mid-career professional thinking about a career pivot, a family weighing a new mortgage, and someone with a windfall deciding between immediate upgrades or long-term freedom. Each scenario will show how the subtraction framework changes the decision. But before that, mentally assign yourself a simple question you'll carry forward. Which monthly payments are chains and which are keys? Keep that question in your pocket. It will make the next steps easier and keep decisions honest. Good. Keep that question. Which monthly payments are chains and which are keys in your pocket? Now let's walk through what you actually do next when subtraction stops feeling theoretical and starts feeling like life. Scenario work. 3 decisions that show the subtraction test in action. First, mid-career pivot. Sam's choice. Sam is 40, mid-level manager, decent salary, restless for 2 years. He's tempted to jump to a startup that pays less but promises autonomy and learning. The old instinct, wait for a bigger paycheck first. The subtraction approach, reduce fixed costs so the choice is practical today. What Sam does step by step. He runs a 1-week audit of all recurring charges, finds $350 a month of leakages, unused subscriptions, an insurance rider he never claimed, 2 rarely used streaming accounts. He cancels or downgrades $200 of that immediately and automates $150 into a hardship buffer. He negotiates his cable and phone to save $75 a month and sells an underused car to eliminate a $400 monthly lease. Within 90 days, his fixed monthly obligations fall by enough that the startup's lower salary is livable for him. He can accept the job because subtraction bought him optionality. Key takeaway. The pivot wasn't about a sudden courageous check. It was about subtracting obligations until the choice became doable. Second, family and mortgage. Jenna and the housing decision. Jenna and her partner look at a larger house because they want better schools and more room. The checklist here isn't just emotion. It's subtraction logic. Questions they must ask. Will this house add new fixed costs? Higher mortgage, property taxes, HOA, utilities, maintenance, commuting time? If income dips by 30% next year, will we still be comfortable? Which obligations would this house create that would reduce our optionality? Longer commute, less time with kids, higher child care costs. They run numbers. The bigger house increases fixed monthly claims by more than their raise covers. They decide to negotiate on priorities. They can find a smaller place near a decent school and redirect money saved into a flexible fund that would let one of them scale back hours for a year if needed. They choose the option that keeps their margin of safety intact. Third, windfall. Priya's bonus. Priya gets a significant bonus. The temptation is instant. New car, upgraded lifestyle, travel. The subtraction frame forces a plan. Her plan before spending, 50% to long-term investment or savings for optionality. 30% to pay down high-interest liabilities. 20% for deliberate enjoyment, a trip or a home improvement that doesn't create a new monthly payment. Because she committed to those buckets beforehand, the bonus doesn't become a chain. It increases her freeboard. These 3 examples are simple. The point is repeated. The tactical shift is small. The strategic result is large. Reduce what binds you, and you can choose risk on your own terms. A detailed playbook. the micro rules that preserve optionality. Rule 1. Audit like a surgeon. Pull 3 months of statements. List every recurring charge, annualize it, and mark usage frequency. For each item, ask essential, negotiable, or needless. If negotiable, downgrade. If needless, cancel. Circle the easy wins and execute them immediately. Don't schedule them for later. Rule 2. The survival months metric. Calculate how many months you could pay essentials if income stopped. Be brutal and conservative. Target a horizon that gives you choices, not panic. For many people, that's 3 to 12 months. Choose what makes your trade-offs realistic. If your survival months are low, prioritize building that buffer over discretionary upgrades. Rule 3, the 24-hour rule. Plus, the 1-week test. Small purchases, wait 24 hours. Bigger purchases, wait a week. If after the wait, the desire persists and you can justify it as an investment in durability or meaningful utility, go ahead. If not, the urge fades. Rule 4. Windfalls are predetermined allocations. Decide ahead of time how you'll divide surprises. Use an illustrative split. 50-30-20 as a starting template. Invest, pay, debt, pleasure. Adjust it to your situation, but commit to something in advance. Rule 5. Treat purchases as investment decisions. Before you buy, ask what return you expect in terms of utility, time saved, durability, or joy per dollar. If you can't justify it qualitatively, skip it. Prefer durability and serviceability over trendiness. A cheap product replaced twice is often more costly than an expensive one kept well. Rule 6. Maintain to avoid catastrophe. Create a maintenance calendar, regular oil changes, HVAC filters, roof checks, gutter cleaning, dental visits, preventive health care, software backups. Budget small, regular amounts for upkeep. Small planned outlays prevent large unplanned disasters. Rule 7. Remove friction for the right habits. Automate savings. Even $25 a month forced out of sight is better than $0. Automate bill negotiations. Set a calendar reminder to renegotiate major services every 6 to 12 months. Make the hard acts easy. For example, move streaming subscriptions to a single cancelable card so it's psychologically simpler to trim. How to manage debt without getting lost in dogma. Some debt is useful. A mortgage on reasonable terms, student loans with low rates. Some debt is poisonous. Credit cards at high rates, predatory loans. The subtraction mindset prioritizes removing liabilities that most directly erode optionality. Action steps. List debts by interest rate and monthly cost. Focus on the ones that cost you the most in interest first. Use small, consistent extra payments against high-rate liabilities. Even $50, $200 extra per month shortens the payoff period and frees future cash flow. Avoid taking on new high-rate debt to buy consumption. If you must borrow, compare the cost of the obligation with the optionality you're sacrificing. A caution: don't turn this into financial orthodoxy. The right balance between paying down debt and investing depends on your rates and cushion. The subtraction test applies. If debt is chaining you to a job or preventing a needed pivot, prioritize reducing it. Negotiation scripts that actually work, short and practical, calling your provider, can feel awkward. Use these short, plain lines. I'm reviewing my monthly bills. Can you tell me what retention offers you have for long-term customers? I found a lower rate elsewhere. Is there anything you can do to match it? I'm considering downgrading my plan. What options do you have for making this more affordable? Most companies will offer a lower rate, downgrade option, or a pause. It's not negotiation theater, it's practical friction reduction. Do it quarterly for the major bills. Big purchases, car and housing, through the subtraction lens. Cars. Ask, what is this car buying me? Time, safety, status, convenience. How many total monthly costs will it add? Payment, insurance, maintenance, parking. Consider total cost of ownership, not monthly payment only. A low monthly lease can hide high insurance or maintenance. If the car is primarily a status signal, subtract it. If it materially reduces time or risk in ways that expand your life choices, weigh it against the margin it consumes. Housing. Treat housing as the biggest recurring claim most people will make. Before upgrading, map the consequences. Commute, childcare, taxes, neighborhood costs. Ask whether a smaller mortgage plus higher optional cash flow buys you more choices than a bigger home does in status. Maintenance checklist. Protect what you have. Vehicles. Oil and filter per manufacturer schedule, seasonal tire check, brake inspection yearly. Home. Gutters twice a year. HVAC tune-up yearly. Roof inspection every few years. Minor repairs patched early. Health. Annual physical, dental cleanings, routine screenings appropriate to your age. Tech. Data. Regular backups. Password manager. Software updates. Personal skills. Small monthly spending for learning that compounds optionality. Courses, books. These are cheap insurance. Deferred maintenance usually grows into catastrophe. The psychology. How to sustain subtraction when social pressure bites. People revert because feeling controlled by rules is unpleasant. Here are practical reframes. Each cut becomes a vote for the life you want. That's not punishment, it's preference. Turn social signaling inward. Invest in stories you want to live, not in displays you'll have to maintain. Keep a visible reminder of what each subtraction buys. A note that lists the options created. 3 months of breathing room. Ability to say no. Make a habit of celebrating restraint. A small ritual when you cancel a needless subscription. It builds positive reinforcement. Quarterly review. The maintenance of optionality. Every quarter, rerun a shorter audit. Did any charges creep back in? Did you get a windfall? Did your survival months change? Adjust allocations for raises. Avoid immediate full lifestyle upgrades. A simple rule: funnel a fixed percentage of every raise to surplus until your margin target is met. Use a raise funnel rule. Allocate 40–60% of raises to long-term option savings, 20–30% to paying down liabilities, 10–30% for tasteful enjoyment. Calibrate to your goals. A realistic allocation example. Illustrative. This is not advice. This is a framework you can tailor. Raise of $1,000 month net. Funnel $500 to savings investment, $300 to debt reduction or emergency fund, $200 for lifestyle upgrades. Bonus of $10,000, 50% to investments, 30% to liabilities, 20% to intentional pleasure. Why the arithmetic matters less than the habit. The exact percentages are adjustable. What matters is the pre-commitment. Windfalls without plan become chains. Windfalls with plan become options. The compound effect explained one more time. If you free $200 a month and put it into liquid savings or low-cost investments, the power is twofold. The balance increases, and the habit of restraint deepens. The money grows, the identity shifts. You become the person who pauses, assesses, and decides, rather than reflexively upgrades. The toughest test, when subtraction feels like unfairness. People often say, "I work hard. Why shouldn't I enjoy it?" That's valid. The subtraction framework doesn't forbid enjoyment. It insists on timing, proportion, and intention. Enjoy deliberately. Schedule indulgences that don't create new permanent monthly claims. Buy experiences over things when possible. Make pleasure part of the plan. Objections and edge cases. I have structural constraints. Fine. Apply subtraction at the margins. Negotiate care costs. Band together with community resources. Find hybrid solutions that free small amounts of cash flow. I have to appear a certain way for my job. Then subtract elsewhere. Simplify other spending lines, automate savings, or negotiate benefits that reduce out-of-pocket costs. I'll just wait until I earn more. The treadmill doesn't wait. Income increases tend to be absorbed. Subtraction works now and it compounds. Sound bites, short, on-screen ready lines. Freedom is subtraction. Every payment is a vote for your future. Delay the impulse, gain the option. Maintenance prevents catastrophe. Discipline compounds like interest. These are bite-sized reminders to flash on screen when you illustrate a point. Short sentences land. Climax. The life subtraction buys you. Imagine this for a moment. You have 3 months of essential expenses saved. Your job becomes unbearable. You can talk to your boss with leverage because you can survive a temporary income drop. You negotiate less hours, a sabbatical, or start a side project without the panic that used to dominate decisions. That's optionality. That's quiet freedom. Or imagine a windfall that you don't feel compelled to spend. You invest much of it. In 2 years, you have a buffer and a new confidence in choices. You take a creative role that pays less at first, but positions you for meaning. That's subtraction working. These are the real payoffs. They aren't headlines. They are calm decisions made without shaking hands. A final, practical 1-week challenge. Do this 1-week test. It's concrete, measurable, and repeatable. Day 1, pull 3 months of statements. List recurring charges. Days 2, 3, cancel the easy wins, things you never use. Implement the 24-hour rule for any wants. Day 4, identify one high-interest liability and commit an extra $5,200 payment this month. Day 5, create or update a maintenance calendar, car, home, health. Day 6, pre-plan how you'd allocate any windfall this month using the 50-30-20 or similar split. Day 7, count your survival months. Decide one specific subtraction to make permanent. The aim isn't pain. It's a clearer map of options. After this week, you'll either feel relief or see the exact places you need to act. Final restatement. The secret, plainly said. Charlie Munger's secret to real freedom in spirit is not a trick or a secret formula. It's methodical subtraction. Reduce the obligations that tie you to circumstance. Build margin, automate discipline, and treat consumption as choiceful investment. Freedom is bought by the small, consistent acts of restraint and maintenance that compound into optionality. One last practical step, a single CTA. Take the 1-week audit challenge right now and use a simple 1-page expense audit plus windfall plan checklist to guide your week. Commit to one subtraction this month. Share what you cut with someone who's doing the work. The point is action, not theory. close with the honest promise. This is not a quick, rich pitch. There are no guaranteed shortcuts. But there is a reliable logic. Subtraction increases options. Options increase freedom. Build your margins slowly, keep maintenance current, and let discipline compound. The result is the quiet freedom to choose the life you want on your terms. Sound bites again, for emphasis. Freedom is subtraction. Optionality beats flash decisions. Delay, inspect, decide. Maintenance is preventive freedom. Discipline compounds like interest. Go run the week. See what subtraction buys you.